In China's manufacturing heartland, the so-called workshop of the world, a family of migrant workers packing up and heading home. The factory they worked for is shutting down. It's not a surprise. They've watched the orders getting steadily worse.
It's obvious business is not as good as it used to be. In the past, our industrial zone has more than 10,000 people. Now, only a few thousand are left.
The company made shoes for Western fashion brands, but labour costs here are rising. Production is being moved elsewhere. This lady says the business and profit are not as good as they used to be. But then we're interrupted. It's clear we're not welcome here.
Can we ask what the problem is? Why we're not allowed to film here?
The man declines to identify himself.
Are you with the police, with the security services? So we're not being allowed to film here. What they probably don't want us to show is that beyond these factory gates there is a notice which says that this factory is closing down. They're talking about the tough business climate, and people who work here are telling us they believe as many as 2,000 jobs will be lost here.
Across the city, Mr. and Mrs. Liang are taking us to see where they used to work. They made sweatshirts in a small factory upstairs. Both in their 60s, they lost their jobs when the business collapsed in October. Their boss disappeared with their wages and money they'd lent the company. So now they're living in this one room, trying not to be a burden to their children. This is not the future they worked so hard for.
If
you have some money, it's okay, but people like us who don't have any may have to live on the streets. Business is really hard. People have little money in their pocket to buy. It's really difficult.
The streets all around are lined with clothing factories, but behind the palm trees the red signs say empty, available for rent. You could argue this is all part of the plan that China's trying to transform its economy away from cheap exports towards high-tech and domestic consumption, but by no means everyone is convinced. Economist Mao Yushi grew up under Chairman Mao. In his 87 years, he's seen revolution in China's rise. Now he has a stark warning for President Xi Jinping and his ever-tightening political control.
He cannot hear any different voice. That's a big danger. No check and balance. If the policy is wrong, it will go further and further. Finally, you will hit on the wall, and that is the big crisis.
And you think that crisis is coming?
Yes, I think, as I said, just in a few years, not a long time.
China's economy is still growing at a rate most Western politicians can only dream of, but that growth is now slowing. There are warning signs, and this country that seemed for so long like a one-way bet no longer looks like quite such a sure thing. Katie Stallard, Sky News in Guangdong Province.